Western governments, the United States, the European Union and our own government fail to impose a single sanction on Israel when it is planning yet another slaughter of the people of Gaza, when already 30,000 people have been massacred, when almost 2 million people have been displaced from their homes, when 1 million people in Rafa have nowhere to run, and Israel is planning yet another slaughter and massacre. And we will be saying very strongly that for Simon Coveney to talk about Israel acting like a rogue state, but not to do anything about it, to impose any sanction whatsoever on a rogue state that is guilty of a genocidal massacre and is planning yet another one, is unconscionable. The reason Israel feels they can get away with another slaughter in Gaza is because not a single Western government, including our own, has imposed any consequences on them, any sanction. We get weasel words of concern or criticism, but no sanctions whatsoever. It is simply unbelievable that the Israeli ambassador remains in this country when she goes on the national media justifying Israel's slaughter of almost 30,000 people in Gaza and their plan to slaughter more people over the coming days if they are allowed to do it. By governments like the United States and the European Union, who, as we speak, continue to provide Israel with the arms, with the weapons, with the favoured trade status that allow them to continue this barbaric assault on the people of Gaza. So we want no more weasel words or descriptions like it's over the top. We are talking about a regime that is in the dock for genocide, the worst crime that can be committed by humanity, that is in the dock for war crimes and crimes against humanity, that is planning further crimes against humanity in the coming days. The only thing that can stop another slaughter in Gaza is if Western governments, starting with our own, impose sanctions on them by expelling the Israeli ambassador, by demanding the immediate suspension of the Euro-Mediterranean Association Agreement, and imposing unilateral sanctions, trade, diplomatic and political sanctions on Israel immediately. If there's no consequences, if there's not an end to the impunity that Israel has enjoyed, they will continue to believe they can get away with any atrocity in Gaza, and thousands more Palestinians will lose their lives as a result. Secondly, I should stress that given the shameful failure of our own government and Western governments to impose any sanctions, we would urge people who are horrified at the slaughter that is taking place in Gaza to get out on the streets this Saturday, where there will be another national demonstration organised by the Irish Palestine Solidarity Campaign that will be assembling at the Garden of Remembrance at 1 o'clock this Saturday. And we hope to see tens and tens of thousands of people on the streets demanding that finally our government and the European Union take action and impose sanctions on Israel for the slaughter it's committing. Secondly, we want to say that we welcome the debate that is happening tonight on the question of public service broadcasting, funding and the TV licence. People Before Profit published a document on the whole issue of public service broadcasting and the TV licence in August of last year, where we proposed that while there has to be significant reform of RTE, including the capping of the salaries, a democratisation of the board so that it better reflects the diversity of civil society, that the workers in RTE or the public should not be the ones to pay the price for the crimes of a small group of people at the top in terms of excessive salaries or poor governance. So yes, the TV licence, as we argued last year in the document we published, should be scrapped, but it needs to be replaced with significant extra public funding through a digital tax on the social media and IT companies. And it is critical, and we put an amendment to the motion tonight to say that as well as scrapping the regressive TV licence, which is unfair on lower income households, it needs to be replaced with that digital tax so we actually have the funds to fund public service broadcasting, but also there should be no suppression of jobs in RTE, or no further privatisation and outsourcing of jobs or key public service broadcasting services. And this is our fear, that there will be a suppression of jobs. So good quality jobs will be lost, privatised and outsourced, and the quality and extent of public service broadcasting will be degraded, and so the public will end up losing because of the malgovernance of a few people at the top and excessive salaries at the top of RTE. So we will be supporting the Sinn Féin motion, but amending that there needs to be a clear commitment by the government to the funding mechanism through a digital tax, and that there should be no privatisation and outsourcing of jobs and key services in RTE that would lead to a diminution of public service broadcasting quality, particularly in the areas of culture, arts, music. These things shouldn't pay the price because a few people got paid too much and there wasn't proper oversight in RTE. Lastly, we will be highlighting very strongly our anger at the government's attempts to ram through the Planning and Development Bill, the second largest piece of legislation that has ever gone through the Houses of the Oireachtas, is being pushed through committee stage this week, where they are talking about 20 hours of committee stage, likely to be more of the same next week. But this is legislation that deals with absolutely key issues to do with public participation in the planning and development process, access to justice, and the right of the public to have their voices heard on key planning and development decisions in terms of housing, in terms of infrastructure, and in terms of the right of communities to have a say about what should be built in their area. There's over 700 pages of this bill. There are more than 1,000 committee amendments. We've had a whole raft of government committee amendments now submitted at fairly late notice. But to cut a long story short, we are extremely worried that this new piece of legislation is essentially dancing to the tune of property developers, rather than diluting the ability of the public to have their say in how we do planning and developing in key areas like housing and infrastructure. We will also be including in the many amendments we have submitted to the bill an important amendment which I want to highlight, given Darragh O'Brien's report to Cabinet today about the increases in housing output, that it's all very well the government saying that they have reached a higher level of housing output. We all welcome that, but the problem is the vast majority of the new housing that is being developed is completely unaffordable. It's unaffordable to buy and it's unaffordable to rent. So we are inserting an amendment which is looking for an increase in what the Part 5 10% social and affordable obligation on developments, that should go to 50%. We think that it is simply pointless producing additional housing if 80% of that housing is unaffordable. So we believe we should start to do what is done in many European countries, to insist that what housing is built should be affordable, and we're saying as a minimum there should be 50% social and affordable housing on all housing development if we're actually going to impact on the housing crisis and indeed attract back the workers that the government say they want to come back, the tradespeople and so on. We have to make housing affordable if there's going to be any prospect of people coming back, but the government are proposing no measures that would do that. We are proposing a measure in this bill that would actually make a serious impact on the affordability of housing in this country.
Gina?
Morning, everybody.
Sorry for
I had to step outside, obviously, the Joint Committee on Assisted Diners meeting for the final time today in public session, so I'm chairing it, so I have to go back relatively quickly. And there's been over 25 meetings in relation to this issue over the last 9 months. and then it'll be up to the committee over the next 3 to 4 weeks to commission and make a report and make a recommendation to the government. So as a person that's supportive of assisted dying, I really hope that the majority of the committee supports the recommendation of legislative change around assisted dying. Obviously it's a very complex issue, but I believe that we can overcome them complexities through really robust legislation and a kind of recommendation from the Assisted Dying Committee. I think it's been one of the most important committees in the lifetime of this government. It's an extremely kind of difficult issue regardless of what kind of side you're on, and somewhere in between, but I think it's an issue that's been debated for a considerable amount of time, particularly in the last number of years, and I think now is the time for the Assisted Dying Committee to make its recommendation to government for a change of legislation over the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Is it too big of a jump, though, for Conservative Ireland, do you think, to allow people like they do in other countries to go and take their own life, essentially?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's been other countries, particularly say in the European Union now, are actively looking at their legislation themselves. But I think, public opinion has, indicates that a vast majority of people would support assisted dying in specific circumstances. So I think the country is in a position where it would accept, changing the law around this issue. And I think it's up to legislators now to reflect that.
Any other questions?